Imagine having access to a tribe of mentors, experts in the biggest questions in tech. This is Making Revenue Tick. Welcome to the podcast. If you're just joining now, we've just finished recording. So, Stephen, what are people going to hear about in the next 60 minutes or so?
They're going to learn how to win the revenue lottery and stay undefeated. So every time they want to get into some room on the planet, if they want to meet a decision maker, if they want to meet anyone, I'm about to give them the formula that is truly undefeated and that works 100% of the time.
Like drop. Let's roll the VT. Welcome back to Making Revenue Tick with podcast alumni, one of my favorite humans on this planet, Stephen Oommen. Stephen, how you doing?
I am doing awesome, man. I appreciate you letting me be here today. It's a privilege.
Well, it's my privilege. I think of all the people we've ever had on the main sort of hero show, no one's ever turned into such a phenomenal champion of what we're trying to build here. The amount of incredible human beings that you've introduced us to, who've gone on to become guests and friends and wonderful things are happening. It's all down to you and your unique ability to form the kind of connection with people that means they trust you to go and speak to some strange British chap on the back of a recommendation on LinkedIn. So thank you.
Well, I'll tell you this, there's actually a lot more. I just have been so busy that off the top of my head, and this week in preparation for this, I'm like, "Oh, I forgot to send you these 4 other people," and I'm saying rock stars. Like, I always try to only send you people that I think are better than me. So, hopefully that's shown through.
Yeah, well, 100%. But I wouldn't say they're better, but different and unique. But it really ties into this theme, right? We could have talked about a thousand different topics, but there's this core to who you are, which is the type of connections and relationships you build with people, means that you have this ability to not only understand how to create that connection in the first place, but actually in your whole time as being a salesperson and a revenue leader and a people leader, you've turned that into a strategy that's generated millions and millions of pounds worth of opportunity and revenue for the businesses you've worked at and made your teams really successful. So the topic is referrals. And I know you talked a little bit about that in the conversation that you had with Tolu, but for our listeners here today, why is this topic of referrals and referrals as part of the sales process something that's so close to your heart?
Yeah, I'd like to say that it was a strategy, that I was thinking about it. But I'll just be honest with everyone. It's actually been an observation looking back, and I realized based on all the revenue that I've generated that 98 plus percent of it has been based on referrals. But when something works, sometimes you do things subconsciously and you don't realize you're just doing it over and over and over again, and it becomes like tying your shoe. And so, again, I would love to tell you that I was writing down this playbook and all this stuff throughout my career. I'm doing that now. And now, over the last year and a half to 2 years, I've been building a playbook for others to use, for companies to use. But man, that's giving me way too much credit to say that it was, my strategy. What actually happened is when I left corporate a year and a half ago and I went to go spend time more with the family because I've got young kids, I was spending way, way, way too much time at work. And the truth of the matter is, what really matters in our life, obviously, when we get to the end of our life, I've never heard anyone say, "Oh man, I wish I would have worked more." It just doesn't happen. So I decided to leave corporate, spend more time with the family, and I got bored really, 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 really fast, like within less than a week. And so when I was working with my business coach about what's next, what are we, what am I going to do with my time? Short story is we came up with, hey, I'm going to write this book. I'm going to focus on speaking, which is one of my highest giftings that I have. And how do I go teach the world how to move from this cold, I shouldn't say move from, um, how do I help them focus more on connections, warm referrals, and actually getting to know people so they can be effective first And then I could show them how to be efficient with that effectiveness versus just what I call spamming the world, right? So it was in that conversation, that's when the observation came and I realized, dang, this is actually how I built my success. And so now I'm breaking down how I'm doing that. So, um, yeah, I think the actual question, let me hear what your feedback is on that because I think your actual question was, why do I believe so much in
Well, that was
referrals? And
beautiful. Yeah, I'm also curious to like why you've had so much success with it. So I can clearly see why you'd place a high amount of value on it, and you've helped other people to go and like learn some of these things and unlock that ability for themselves. When I guess a lot of people just say, "Hey, go and network," you know. So, but like, why do you love it so much? Why do you care about this topic so much?
yeah, so obviously number one is that it works, but I'm going to give you the story of the 99 and one or the story of the 100, right? And here's the way that I think about it. Number one is if I am speaking to you and talking about you referring me, it puts me in a place of accountability because you, Rich, will not refer me unless you believe in me. Hopefully, that you believe in my service or product. And you already know that potentially the person I'm asking for a referral to might have the problem that I can solve, right? So there's this whole level of accountability that it puts on myself to be referable. But what I mean by the story of the 99 and 1 is let's say if you were to use a cold outbound method, you reach out to 100 people, one person you get an opportunity from. Say I don't know what the actual stats are these days for cold outbound, but I'm just saying 1%. I always hear that term, and I don't know if it's 1% you get a meeting, 1% you get an opportunity, but let's just call it the one. The other 99 people that you either spoke to, reached out to, sort of in your mind goes by the wayside if you are focusing mainly on cold outbound. But if I am networking and reaching out and meeting 100 new individuals, maybe I still only find one opportunity. Let's just say that's true. In my experience, because of the way that I teach people how to network and how to get referrals, it's much, much higher. However, let's call it the identical metric 1%. The difference is those 9 other people have tremendous value in my life, and I can bring tremendous value in their life. So instead of a 1% success rate, I look at that as a 100% success rate because let's use you and me, for example. Have you and I ever transacted and done anything for a monetary benefit between the two of us?
No.
No, not at all. But like you said, there's value in the relationship. I've referred you to people. I think because you're getting respectable, amazing guests, you're building your influence, you're building your audience. And when we spoke, and just caught up last week, you were saying that you've started to get business because of the podcast because people realize who you are and what you do differently and that you're bringing value to the talent marketplace, something that no one else is doing. But yet you and I have never transacted anything monetarily. That to me is the difference and why you can see the passion and the excitement that I have around referrals because to me, it's a 100% success rate each and every time because I can take those 99 and all 100 with me for the rest of my life.
I love it. I love it. And it is true. Whilst we haven't yet exchanged any kind of monetary value in the relationship, then I do feel like I owe you the world's biggest steak. And I'm quite excited about coming out to Texas and taking you out for some proper barbecue. Uh,
I love it. I love it.
and it's definitely on me. So what I'm curious about is if I tell you how I got trained in networking when I became a salesperson, the answer would be I didn't get trained in networking. It is literally like, you're a new SDR, maybe you've become like an account manager. For me, it was like I went from SDR to manager really quick. And we were like, right, we go to an event. So you'd go to an event as part of like some sort of, kickoff or some kind of like corporate event where people are bringing contacts together and they just go and meet people. Literally, just go and meet people. And you're like, What do I do? And for a lot of people, it's like their biggest fear going to talk to strangers, and I definitely feel guilty of this, even though I'm like quite an extroverted person. Obviously, I speak to strangers all day long. I get paid to talk to strangers. If you put me in like a networking environment, I will like if I know someone that's there before, I'll go straight to that person. If I don't, I'll form like a friend pretty quick, and then I'll pretty much stay with them all day. And I think I see most people doing the same thing. But some people are wicked networkers, and they go and have great conversations, and everyone's engaging, and they're like a bit of a magnet for people. But I wonder how many of those people just like learned it, and how many of those people ever got taught. Like in your experience, did you ever get taught how to go and
Yeah.
network?
I don't think I was ever taught appropriately. What I did is I studied and I thought about it and I reflected. So I'm going to give you a reframed view of networking that anybody in the world, that anybody listening can take. And I genuinely hope that it changes their heart, their psychology, their thought process when they walk into any group of individuals. Now, the first thing to think about is when somebody titles something as a networking event, 99% of those individuals, are they there to sell something or to buy something? What's the answer that you think? So you got a bunch of sellers. That's not your buying typically buying. Like sometimes there is, but here's my point. That's not the mode that people are in. Yet what people are being taught is you should have your 30-second elevator pitch. You should know how to pitch value and do all these things so you get somebody's interest. No. So here's the way that I ask people to think about things. Rich, let me ask you this. If you saw a complete stranger, you were at the mall, you were on the side of the road, somebody trips and falls down. You don't know them, but they're close enough to you. What do you do?
I try and help them.
But you don't know them though. Hopefully very clearly you can see where I'm going with this. Because the viewpoint is when you walk into a room of people that you don't know, if you look at everybody as someone that you can essentially help, what you're trying to figure out is how you can help them. How can you support them? And so when you walk up to someone and you're not thinking about yourself and you're trying to understand more about them, it changes the anxiety, changes the pressure you put on yourself because literally the word investment on the other side of investment is the term ROI, return on investment. I don't know that there's a such thing called return on elevator pitch, right? Like that's just, I don't think that exists. So if you're trying to invest in others, like it seems so fundamental and basic, but yet that's where the anxiety comes from is we think we need to show up in a certain way. But if the spotlight's not on us and we put the spotlight on someone else, all that anxiety, all that worry starts to dissipate. Never 100% goes away, but at least it's a different way of thinking about it. Does that make sense?
It does. And it also makes me think about the type of questions that they will have been asked by their managers before. So let's say it's like they said, we want to go to this event. They're going, how much pipeline are you going to go and get? How many leads are you going to go and get? How much revenue will go and get? Someone's like had an ROI conversation before that in anticipation of what they'll get from that event. And then I think a lot of people would go into that situation going, and then after I come back, I'm going to be asked, what did you actually achieve? Was it worth it? All that sort of stuff. And they're going, well, the value I can offer to this person is my solution. And I think a lot of salespeople, like when I'm talking to salespeople about like why they love about sales, they instinctively will just respond with I love helping people. I think a few people genuinely believe that. And people love to like get a deal done where they know that the other person's bought it, but ultimately they really want to go and get the commission check, hit the target, get the high five, get the manager applauding them, get the promotion. They're thinking about what they can get from it. But you're thinking a bit differently, which is my value to this person doesn't have to be about what our solution can offer their business. You're thinking much longer term and much more about the human behind the title that you might be meeting. Could you just like unpack that for me?
Yeah, there's 3 things, and this is about to be a long portion of the segment. If this was like one of those recording features, you would see me like for a long time. So There was a lot to unpack there. So the first thing is, you're right. It's not about my solution. It's actually about how can I as a human bring value to you as a human. You hit it on the head. It is long term, but maybe it's not my solution. Maybe it's a connection of mine. Maybe it's a problem that you have. And you know what? I'm going to go research because I know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody. Maybe. So I'm a big believer in the 6 degrees of separation in terms of philosophy, meaning everybody knows someone. I've heard recently that that whole 6 degrees of separation got debunked. I don't really care one way or another. The point still stands firm is that you don't know who someone else knows. So, with that philosophy in mind, here's the way that I think about it, right? First and foremost, you have to believe that the wealth of this world is in people, not in currency. If you don't believe that, sorry, probably can't help you, and you're probably not the right type of person that people wanna hang out with, right? In my opinion. If all you are if all you are is focusing on the commission, this is one of the streams that I'll talk about. I am a big believer that when somebody is overly focused on the commission, there's one of 2 reasons, maybe more reasons, but one of 2 primary reasons. I'm the same way, like, I'm very competitive with myself. I want to win, right? There's that angst. Now, there's the other side of me that, like, my ethics, my morals, my belief system on how I was raised doesn't want to make a sale for the sake of making a sale. So it's this dichotomy between my desire to win and then my desire to be just a good human being and help others, right? They're always at ends, right? I don't think anybody on the planet would say differently. But the other part of it is your personal circumstances and in terms of your personal financial circumstances. Some people need that commission. And if they're in a place of need, that's what we call commission breath. That's what we call desperation. So there's a whole nother talk we could have that I help people with to help them understand how do they get house, home, finances in order so they don't need the sale. And it's not going to break them if they don't make the sale. Because when you don't have that need, we all know it. Like those are the type of salespeople you can tell. Okay, well, I'm here for you. It's nice. I would love for you to do business with me. But if you don't, I'm still going to be okay. And I'm going to help you regardless in other areas, even if my service isn't what you need right now. So then the other part of this is when I said, if you believe the wealth of this world is in the people, now, I'm about to give a very tactical example, and it's going to sound like, oh my gosh, he's using people like this. No, that's not the point. I'm just showing you how math actually works. So I was reading a book on networking, and the guy said, I can't remember the guy's name, so I would give him credit, but I just can't remember off the top of my head the author's name. But he said that he asked a couple wedding planners, what is the average number of people that will attend a wedding? And the person said, "Oh, around 250." He asked a director of a morgue, what's the average size of people that attend funerals? Funny enough, it also happened to be 250. So what he basically said is that whether it's our wedding or our funeral, most people have around 250 in their life of people that they actually know. And I've always heard it's like 150, but let's just call it 250. That means every person you know unlocks another 250 people that they know in their circle of influence that they can usually introduce you to. Are you telling me that if you aren't strategic and if you aren't targeted, you like, let's say you're selling into manufacturing, go to an association, meet a bunch of manufacturing individuals and serve them. And then guess what? It unlocks, let's say you meet 5 people. 5 times 250 is another 1,250 people. Sure, some of those people might overlap, so let's call it like 1,000 new people. If you don't think that there are decision makers in those individuals and you haven't unlocked a network that is incredible, like, then you're right. We're looking at this incorrectly because we're looking at pipeline in the moment. But what I can tell you is that one of the exercises that I take every single company through, and it is undefeated. Like I have never seen what I am about to tell you not work. And everyone's like, my gosh. I can't believe we didn't think of this. And they're always astounded. And here's the exercise. There's two parts to it. Number one is the magic question that I tell anyone. If you want to up level your network within 2 weeks, because people will say, "Oh, Stephen, I've just got into sales. I don't have a network, so I can't go sell to my network." In 2 weeks, you will elevate your network with this one question. Every single person you meet, every meeting, because I'll ask even a new SDR, for example. They're doing a bunch of cold calls. Cool. You get someone on a meeting, they'll say, "Oh, I've talked about 3 people a day." All right. Well, if you ask 3 people a day, hey, I'm just curious, who's somebody that you personally know? Like let's try it with you, Rich. Think about someone that you personally know that you highly, highly respect in the business world. Like who just pops into your mind that, and obviously not someone that I referred you to, but somebody that you personally know that you highly respect.
Yeah, Oscar Ganutza at Honeywell.
Why do you respect Oscar? What does he do?
So he's a incredibly senior, like, general manager at Honeywell. We met before he was at that company, and we just hit it off massively. He's just got the most energy I think I've ever seen. Is so passionate, an incredible leader, and just super humble and super nice. Just a wonderful human being.
Okay, watch what's about to happen. Rich, obviously you know me for a bit. Um, would you be willing to make an introduction to me and Oscar? Because if you respect him, I want to learn from him. Could you just ask him if he'd be willing to meet with me as a two people that you respect, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
Done. Now, here's the thing. When there's two things I said specifically, because what I'm trying to do is consistently elevate my network. I guarantee you, Oscar knows a lot of people in that industry. Oh, if I go to Oscar and say the same thing, here's the two parts of that question that I asked. Personally, no, because like I'm not about to ask for a referral to somebody you don't know. And then number two, the word respect. The reason that is so powerful is because when you say the word respect, your brain psychologically is not going to go to somebody like what you consider beneath you. And I hate to use the word beneath when we're talking about humans, but you understand the concept here. You elevated your thinking automatically to probably, higher titles, higher people. And it doesn't always happen that way, but usually it's very cool, intelligent, amazing human beings that are probably very connected. That alone, if you asked every human being that you ever come in contact with, preferably people that you know fairly well, or even a little bit, because I think the example that I gave was based on a cold call. That was a terrible example because if you're an SDR and you call someone you don't know, they don't know you that well. So usually when I do this, in real life, sometimes you think about these things when you're live like this, and your brain goes to weird places. But the way that I usually operate is I get people to make a list of the people they know, and usually what'll happen is they'll realize, oh my gosh, I actually have some high level people in my network. I go ask them. I just continue within 2 weeks. They are meeting the most amazing human beings. So let's say you do this with a sales team. Okay. Within 2 weeks, guarantee you they can refer people back and forth because they're getting into each other's accounts and can help and refer back and forth. But here's the other part of the exercise. When I'm sitting in a room of, let's say, 50 sellers, 100 sellers doing a sales kickoff, anything of that nature, I'll just pick one person out of the room. I go, hey, what industry do you sell in? And this happened just a few months ago. It was hilarious. Um, and the seller goes, healthcare. Now, I don't do a lot of big intros about myself at the beginning of a kickoff because it's not about me. So she didn't know where I was from, didn't know my background. They can see on LinkedIn and all that stuff. So I just give them that. They can look it up. Cool. If they want to know more about me,
Yeah.
wonderful. Go, what industry are you in? She goes, healthcare. All right, cool. What city or geography are you focused on? Dallas. You can't make this stuff up. She had no idea I lived in Dallas. Okay, what's one of your accounts? Baylor. So the funny thing is my wife had just spoken to the CEO of one of the Baylor hospitals, like about some stuff like about a month and a half before because she was connecting with them. And I'm like, just totally random, right? But now granted, I'm the trainer slash speaker at this point. but who cares? Now, you know what's fascinating about this, and this is where a lot of sellers probably drop the ball. Guess what happened after that?
Well, she didn't follow up.
Isn't that crazy? So this is part of what I see in the marketplace. Like even with referrals, like I'm busy. We're all busy. Like how long did it take for us to get this thing scheduled? Because we just get busy. We got families, we got lives. And so I did the same thing with her and I said, "Hey, who in the room has any connections in healthcare?" This 24-year-old, off the side, he raises his hand. And the reason I use the age is because I want people to understand it doesn't matter if you've been in business for 30 years or you're brand new out of college, everybody has a network. Said, who do you know in healthcare? He goes, my girlfriend. I said, what does she do? She was some sort of administrative whatever. What company does she work for? What hospital? And he said what the hospital was. And I look at her and I said, look at your account list because they had like this was a bigger account list they had. So she had like 1,000 across the geo she had. Guess what we found out?
It was on the list.
It was on the list. And I'm undefeated in that when you start working the room and you realize within the room, within the same sales team, people can refer back and forth, but no one has thought to ever ask. I'll give you one more. So, well, yeah, I'll just go ahead and say it. So I was training another one, and it's funny enough because it happened to be a company that you and I know very, very well. And this was a group of government sellers. We go around the room and, we were talking very similar thing. Not one person thought to ask after I did this training, thought to ask, but one of the accounts that was there, all of my family works within this government agency. Nobody thought to ask. And I'm like, that's how close like we are. It's like the 3 feet from gold. And that's the why I find it such an untapped resource. People are trying to do intent and do all this kind of stuff when literally you could just probably ask your next door neighbor and they could probably get you into some accounts. We just don't know. And that's the thing is the I don't know is to me a fascinating place to be. And it creates this curiosity, creativity, and this yearning to know more about you. And it's the whole if I know more about you, what's the three fingers pointing back sort of thing. So invest in other people, you'll get the return.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Because I speak to a lot of people who have, let's say, they just left a role and they're going, right, we need to go and do our job search. A lot of these are executive level people, and they go, oh, sugar, we spent our 20 years building our careers, and opportunities have always just come to us. But it's not like that now, and we're having to like trawl job boards and apply for roles. And I asked them like, what's their strategy around their job search? And most people say, well, I've tried a bit of that and I've tried a bit of this and I've asked a couple of recruiters and I've told people I'm looking. But it's this really, when I dig into the detail and just like peel back the onion a little bit, I say, like, what specifically have you asked people? Talk me through like what questions are you asking? And they just say, oh, I'm really just telling people that I'm available. And if they know anything, let me know. So it's like super non-specific, super passive, no kind of follow-up, certainly not orchestrated. There's no data around it, there's no systemization. Um, so even senior executives who have made a career out of selling to people, and teaching people how to sell to people, when it comes to actually asking for the referral and thinking about who they're gonna ask and how they're gonna ask it, they kinda come up short. And I just wonder what your perspective is on why so many people don't ask for referrals in an effective way.
Yeah. So there's once again, every time you ask a phenomenal question, my brain go because there's like a lot of different ways to take it. So, let me try to outline it first. One is we'll first talk about the specificity, right? And the fact that when you're specific, people think they might lose out on something else. And then I'll also talk about why people don't ask for referrals, the psychology behind what happens when you ask for a referral. So let's first talk about the first one with specificity. I myself have made this mistake, right? Because what happens is when I've had people, and I'm not talking about the job market, I'll tell you what I mean here in just a second. But people have come to me and said, Steven, can you get me into, let's say, Microsoft? Cool. What kind of job do you want? Man, I'll take anything. I look and, I'm a little funny. I say, oh, sorry, I can't find, there's no job description for anything. So what does that even mean? Because when you want everything, you're not like, no one knows what to get you. Like, okay, well, I want to be in sales. Okay. What industry? Where do you have connections? What do you focus on? Like, there's so much to this. And if you can't get very specific, that's what happens is you're in this sea of like, I don't actually know what I want. But if some and so some people may disagree with this, but now, like, what I tell people is if you're gonna come ask me for help, give me your top 5 companies, like, don't make me do homework. It's your job search. It's if you want me to refer you, I've got a lot of connections, but give me your top 5 companies. What are the types of jobs, mid-market, SMB, industry, all this kind of stuff, right? Because then I can say I can actually borderline interview because as a referrer, I'm putting my name on the line for you. I don't wanna look stupid. So this goes into this second part of why people are not good at asking for referrals, because what's happening is there's a and this is also why referrals work so well, because you're literally engaging, drafting, and, recruiting someone to be on your side of the table and represent you as an agent to someone else, to one of their friends. And it's their name on the line. You're borrowing their trust, you're borrowing their reputation, you're borrowing all these other things to shorten this trust gap, right? When you do that, that's scary. I don't like subconsciously, people may not admit to it, but subconsciously, I don't trust myself. What if I make them look bad? Early on in my career, I was so good because, like, in terms of getting meetings, like, I was actually good at cold calling, and I could get meeting after meeting after meeting. Very different than actually generating revenue. So at the beginning of the call, notice I said 98+% of the revenue I generated was through warm referrals, but I can get a meeting. Like, I'm really good at cold calls, mainly cold calls, not as much cold email. I used to be decent at it, but not like great. So my point being is this: why did I do that? Because I was so afraid of, like, putting my name on the line with someone else, and there was this fear. I didn't trust myself. I didn't know the value that I would bring. That's a whole different journey that somebody has to be on. So when you think about those 2 things and the lack of specificity, it's because they think they're going to lose out on something. Well, here's the problem. If you don't know what you're ridiculously good at, that tells me you don't know your value. So, like, the mistake that I was making last year, I'll give you a great example. When I left corporate, I didn't fully tell everyone. I've gotten 100% of my speaking gigs and training gigs based on warm referrals. I'm now making this transition to also starting to share it on LinkedIn, on social media, putting the business together, because here's the thing. I know that I am ridiculously good and impactful, not only on stage, but in the long run, because I see the impact, because I've proven it now. And that, so I know what I am. So now when people ask me who I am, I don't wishy-wash. I'm like, I am literally a keynote speaker and sales trainer that will get your sellers to be walked in to the decision maker's office, to get into any room on the house that they want. Like, once you're very clear on that, so if somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, we need help writing a cold email. We need help writing with our team because they do a lot of cold calls." I mean, I'm decent at it, but I literally refer to different people and friends of mine. And I know exactly who is perfect for those things. So to me, that's also the portion of the warm referral is don't give them homework to do. Do the homework for them and give them the language, give them the words to say on your behalf that they can feel comfortable with, and let them know your value and let them know the problem that you can solve for their friend, their, whoever they're referring to. So, like, that's the way we have to think about it and shift our brains.
And I wonder how much of it is about shifting the targets. So it must have been a bugbear for you as a revenue leader that you knew that referrals was such an incredible source of access to decision makers, conversations, pipeline, and revenue. but I guess a lot of the company level metrics and systems and dashboards were geared towards we need this many accounts, this much activity, at this conversion ratio, which is terrible. We'll get this result. And then we'll whack a load of fat into it. And then we'll just get the SDRs and AEs to bash out activity
Yep.
until they burn out to achieve it. So like talk me through what your reaction to that whole this conflict between what you know works, which will be very different in terms of activity, than how the actual system and KPIs are designed today.
Yeah, I mean, literally, this is how I felt every single because especially if you are in an enterprise function. Now, I do believe in activity. Do not get me wrong. Show me what you're making an effort to do. Because if you're not willing to network, if you're not willing to give referral, like, what are you gonna do? Sit around and just pray that it comes from the sky? No, you got to do something. Shake the trees. You got to do something. Do I think that's the highest and best use of a seller's time? Obviously not. I do think that there are those metrics. I think when people look at it as, or I believe that this is going to sound very, very, if you don't understand, I'm trying to think about how to say this in context, but I'll just say it because it might, like you said the other day, it might tick some people off, but go figure. I actually think the SDR function in cold outbound is a function of marketing. I don't think marketing necessarily owns it. I think it's a function of marketing because it's about getting the word out there, getting the education out there. I don't think it should be necessarily your number one pipeline generation source. That shouldn't be the metric. It's an education source. It's so people hear your voice. They see the name, maybe things of that nature. What are the problems you solve? Right. So eventually it starts to shake the trees a little bit. Um, but yes, it drove me bananas because if you did 100 calls a day, what does that actually mean? 100 calls of what? It's actually not about the activity, it's the quality of each activity. Then you can increase quantity. So if you think about these spam cannons, the things out there that people are automating and sequencing and all that kind of stuff, like unless the actual copy is decent, that's kind of your first thing. But then you even got to get it delivered, right? Like, are somebody going to answer the phone? Will they listen to the voicemail? The quality of the message we're putting out does actually matter, right? But if you look at director level and below, maybe that motion works a little bit better. But the decision maker, budget holder, those high executive roles, like I would almost guarantee those significantly drop with those sort of methodologies. And so the goal is, how do you get into the room? And that's the framework that I have. And I've just like observed what I've done to get into the room with any of those executives if I want to, right?
Yeah.
And I'll share that here in a second if you'd like.
Yeah. I'd love to. Please do.
Yeah. What was the other part of that question? Because I think, I keep going off on these tangents, and I'm like, man, the audience is like, wait, did he actually answer that question or not? Like, hopefully they're getting something from it, but
If we missed something, put it in the comments and then Stephen will answer it afterwards. Again, my brain is, whenever I talk to you, my brain's going full of ideas. So that I've got like my next three things I want to ask you lined up in my
yeah.
brain.
All right, cool. We'll
And
just whether I answered it or not. Yeah,
yeah.
whether I answer or not, ask the next couple questions.
Yeah. Okay. What it makes me think of, right, is again the reality of like this whole like KPI measurement thing, right? So just today, I was speaking to a revenue leader, become a good friend of mine very recently. He's just taken a new role. We're talking about his talent strategy and the roles that he might be hiring, and he's like asking me for advice. Do you still believe in SDR? Would you think that AE should be full cycle? What are all these things? And I'm asking him some questions, and I told him about this principle that I believe, and it's almost a bit of foresight that I have, which is I'm very much against AI SDRs in the same way I'm against like these AI recruitment tools that, go and scour the market for opportunities. It's like we don't need more technology in the way of human beings interactive from a recruitment perspective, and volume isn't the solution. So there's this like activity scaled will solve the problem. People are selling these magic pills. But what I believe is the future of SDR is very strong, but it won't be SDR, it'll be RDRs, relationship development reps. Because what we really want to do with people within our ICP, they're the right sort of persona where we know we can help them. We've got a really compelling story. We've done our research. We've got lots of credibility and people that we can refer, that we're really good at helping this type of person solve this type of problem. So what we need is access, and then we need to build trust in that person so that they would want to do business with us. So it's like, if one of those people in our ICP is making a decision and not considering us, we failed. What would make them consider us, and not just because they've done some AI research, but actually like think of us and we come up in conversation, is because someone's got some kind of relationship, because we like watered that plant before we even asked for something. So it'll be like a relationship development rep. So rather than like this magic pill, I believe that there's like magic skills that an RDR would have that an AI SDR will never be able to compete with. And what I was going to ask you is help me build an RDR. So if we were going to talk about like what would make a great RDR,
Ooh, buddy, I got one for you.
let's build it.
All right. So another term is NDR, network development rep. So like relation, I like them all, right? So there's different terminologies. It's like SDR versus BDR. They're all two sides of the same coins. And with that segue of coins, I think of what most people do in sales is they're playing the slot machine and hoping for the best. And you create these sales processes, you create methodologies that increase your probability of success, right? That's just what sales process, because you're emulating a buying process in saying, here's how most buyers buy. That's how we even came up with these sales processes. And so you're trying to get a higher probability. So when you pull the slot machine, you're going to win the lottery. Well, I'm about to walk you through 5 coins. I won't go through all of them in depth, but if you're listening and you want me to come talk to your company about it, like midway and add through the podcast, like give me a call, get on LinkedIn, and I will make sure that your sales team is undefeated. Your entire company is undefeated, because there's 2 things. Most people put revenue, the first, in my personal opinion, mistake that most CEOs and CROs make is that the sales team is responsible for revenue. That's literally missing the boat. Why not have every employee responsible for revenue? And again, once again, it's principle, scale, tactics don't. Here's the principle. Why would someone want to work for a company that they did not want to see succeed? Logically doesn't make sense. In order to succeed, you need to generate revenue. So every employee should have a stake in seeing the company generate revenue. If they're not willing to, are they the right type of employee? That's just my thought process, right? Does that mean they need to be in sales? No. What it means is that every employee is within your network. Every employee has 250 people they probably know. How do you go about and literally incentivize all of your employees to be referring their friends, family, like any, because of like, what if they know the CEO of like Honeywell, right? And then you have an amazing service or product. Now, that is a big thing. You have to have a great service or product. Otherwise, the employee is not going to, they may just be there for a job.
Yeah.
It's how life works. So make sure you have a great product or service, because again, what did we say before? What we learned, you are putting that person's name and reputation on the line, right? All right. So when you think about building this magic skills of an RDR or an NDR, these are the 5 coins that if you put these 5 coins in your networking and warm referral slot machine, lottery undefeated every time. First and foremost, I'll walk through the coins. They're acronyms, COIN. So COI networks, right? So you need a network of centers of influence. So COI, center of influence network. You need a connector of influence network. You need a community of influence network. You need a coaches of influence network. And you need a customer of influence network. If you go after these 5 things, promise you can get into any account on the planet that you want. I'll basically break down a few of them. Centers of influence is what it sounds like. These are the people that already have vast networks. These are board members, investors, celebrities, CEOs, like people who literally have done something amazing, and like the gravity of who they are brings people into their orbit. They're the center of influence. Connectors of influence, I believe that I am more of a connector of influence. My goal is to be the guy that everyone knows is go to Steven because he's got a guy. I'm the you got a guy guy, right? So we all know those people, right? I'm the guy that was remember the people in the streets, they'd open up their trunk, open up their trench coat, and they're selling all sorts of things like that. That's kind of me with people. It's like I want to know everybody. I try not, I don't discriminate. I want to know like every person on the planet if I had the opportunity, right? So you need connectors of influence. These are also partners, right? People have partner programs, right? How do you really develop those? The communities of influence. This is what people don't typically understand. Birds of a feather flock together. Why do people join country clubs? It's not because like they really want to golf, they want the network. Ivy League schools, Oxford, all these things. Yes, the education's great, but it's really the alumni network on the back end. That's why people try to get into certain schools. Communities could also be events. To me, a community is a congregation or an organization of people. That's it. So it could be a digital community. It could be an event. It could be just anywhere. LinkedIn is a community, but most people don't know how to utilize communities properly. If when I was getting into retail and consumer goods in my last role, I had zero experience, zero, zero connections. I was part of a community. I asked one of the heads of that community, "Hey, who in our community like is the retail consumer goods expert?" They said, "Go to this person." I went to that person. Within literally 24 hours of me asking that question, I had introductions to Abercrombie and Fitch, Duluth Trading. Like these are some big, big name companies and like high level executives I was on the phone with within 24 hours because of the community, which is of influence, right? Most times people don't think about coach. Maybe they do. Let me give people more credit that I'm giving. But for me, when I look at coaches, people that advise me, mentor me, and especially if I'm going to pay a coach, I want to know who else they're coaching. How many people are like, what is their network like? Because if their network is there, I want them to get to know me so they feel comfortable with me. Because when I ask for a referral, they know that my heart is right, that I'm moral, I'm ethical, all these things. But what's in it for me is not just the knowledge that they're going to impart on me. That's great. It's truly the network. And then all of this you're doing to do what? To get customers. If you have a customer that is happy with you, birds of a feather flock together. Those people probably were at other companies. Those people probably know people at other companies. Like, what's there's a stat that's always floating around now, and I don't know how accurate it is, but it's directional, but it says something like 80+% of customers are willing to refer. Only 11% of sellers ever ask. And it goes back to some people just haven't been trained how to ask properly. Don't give them homework. Don't do these. Like do it this way. Make it very crystal clear what you're asking. Why is it going to be good for them? All these different things. This is why the magic skills come with training, comes with impact. That's why guys like me exist, right? But if you deposit those 5 coins in your networking warm referral slot machine, undefeated every time.
Yeah, interesting. It would change like the whole recruitment process, right? Because if you could ask people about for the things that they're passionate about, like who they found out about and who they've connected with. Have they ever had that just curiosity and a bit of, spark about them to go, well, I'm really into like gaming. And what I did is I actually reached out to like the person that made the game, And like if you just find out within the things that they're interested in, how they've gone about exploring beyond the obvious to actually go and find the people that and form communities and clubs and competitions and stuff like that. I think it says a lot. And I think in this world where we're all so connected through applications and platforms, the ones who go, well, let me find the people who are connected rather than just like a follow account, I think it's really important. And like, I've always got a bit of a problem with the word influencer because it's like, well, what does that really mean? Someone described me as an influencer the other day because I was like, I have more than 10,000 followers on LinkedIn. I'm like, it's just because I've sent so many connection requests and met so many people during my time.
Rich, let me stop you right there and let you know. You influence me every day, brother.
I made it, mom.
100%.
Yeah, but it's true. But so few people like, I think really understand what that word means is, to influence someone. And I think it just starts with like, to someone like you. There was a really interesting piece of training I had once around sales, and I really liked it. They asked the question, what's the difference between a good and a great relationship? And they asked us all in the room, and everyone went round. We all kind of gave our answers. But the actual answer was, would someone do something for you that they wouldn't do for someone else? Like, that's how you know, and you can test for it. And like, and a lot of people in sales would click with that because they go, yeah, I'm going to test my champion. It's part of like champion training, right? Test my champion. And if they don't do it, then I know they're not really a champion, you know? And I just wonder, like, what are some of the ways that you test for the amount of connection and goodwill and trust that you've built with people? And how do you teach other people to do the same?
Well, the first thing that came to mind actually, is when I go to a city. Like, if you come to Dallas, I don't care if you're an hour away, if you're, 2 hours away, if you're 3 hours away, if you're within the vicinity, I'm driving to see you. Same thing if I come to UK, I think you're outside, I don't think you and Tola, like, are right in the city. Um, I would hope that somehow we would find a way. And I've noticed that, it's always fascinating to me that people will act a certain way and like, "Oh, we're friends, we're this and that." You go to their city, and if it's like an hour, they're like, "Oh, that's too far." Now, let me be very clear. I have young kids. I get it. Like, it's not foolproof. That's like literally you might be catching them at a bad time. So I'm not saying this is foolproof, but it's fairly consistent that you can tell very quickly. Like sometimes I go to, I'm not even gonna call anyone out. But anyways, I'll go to one city and 3 different times I'll ask someone, "Hey, would you like to meet up?" And there's always a reason. No, I haven't risen to the level of influence. I don't take it as a slight. Against them. I take it as a slight against me. Like, I need to get better. I need to bring more value. I haven't brought enough value to them in their life. So it's a place of accountability. So to me, it says step up your game. That's one. Um, the funny thing is, I know you have influence over me because sometimes when I'm putting the kids to bed, I try on my British accent and I like act like I'm you. So, that's it's terrible. Oh, I don't know if I'm Australian, Irish, British, what, like, it's all this stuff coming, who knows? My kids just think I'm weird, so whatever.
I love it. I love it. I love that. It's so funny. I'd love to hear that one day. We get to do that. So I think like bringing it all home. So there's I love this topic because I don't think most people get trained in it. I think most people get told to go and network. I think young people fear it. It's like kind of like, going and talking to strangers. There is a barrier, and I think it's because we're incentivized and encouraged by managers to go and get something and come back with like the prize that we've got, rather than like watering this plant of the human being behind the job title and making that human connection. So we've touched so much already. I guess what would be really interesting to understand is, now do this professionally, right? You go into companies, you help managers and founders and salespeople to leverage this incredible tool of referral selling to drive not just significant impact, but also, like, I guess a lot of people would fall back in love with sales when they actually start connecting with people in a meaningful
Yeah.
way. So I just wonder, like, what's one of the favorite things that you cover when you're working with companies that really inspires people beyond the traditional type of sales training that they might get force fed?
Yeah, so it's when they have it happen in the room. So, like, if I'm at an SKO, I'll tell you something that happened, like, back in March, and then I had gotten the results after a quarter. Billion-dollar company, 0% warm referrals. 100% their business was built on cold. This is why I'm not against cold. I just think it takes longer and it's more expensive and all these other things. Within 1 quarter, I showed them a few things of how to ask. I gave them a template for how to ask, and I even have, like, these, qualifiers. to help people's brains move in the right direction when you ask a referral so the referee knows exactly who to refer you to. Within literally, I spoke to them an hour, hour and a half. That was it. That was how long the session was. Within 1/4, 10% of their business was based on warm referrals. I want you to think about that. 1.5 hours. And like that to me is exciting because especially when you have these exercises where it happens in the room and they realize how fast, because you were talking about going to an event. Now, it actually can happen super quickly. I went to an event last week. I got 5 very warm leads for my business. 5. Now, that doesn't seem like a lot, but if you had your army of sellers go and invest and get to know people, it'd probably be more. And I actually wasn't going there to network. I was going there to learn. So this is just as a byproduct. If I was intentional, I would probably come away with more leads. So there is actually a speed benefit if you do it correctly. Like I said, the coins are undefeated. Within 2 weeks, you can elevate your network and you will get into rooms you never thought possible. But even in the moment, you go to like an event and it can happen. So, like when I'm sitting in a SKO or a training or anything, and it literally happens in the room, and somebody's like, "Oh," and I make them shoot a text right then and there. Oh, that's exciting because you see it happening, and
Yeah.
that's powerful.
You were telling me about this. You actually design a bunch of activities within the session where people are like implementing it live, right? Could we just give us like an idea of what someone might be able to, what they would get if you came in to spend time with them in terms of like something that their team would start doing literally during the
I
session?
would literally make people like text the deal. So like we go through companies, industries, roles, functions, like of the entire room. We have people raise their hand. Okay, cool. Give me an account. Boom. It's in this industry, this whatever. So we think about who, and I give all these examples. Like one example is this for retail. There's podcasts that are focused on retail. How do you get to like those podcast hosts who now know all these other people, right? So if you, like your great example where you probably have had some really high level decision makers on the line, if somebody's watching what podcast and they knew who you were, like, does anyone know Rich? Boom. Can you shoot him a text? Boom. So like what happens is in that room, you can very quickly find 1 or 2 people, actually quite a bit more depending on how big the room is, and all of a sudden, within like an hour, you can generate like millions of pipeline, but nobody actually sits there and does this because no one really knows how or hasn't enacted that. So I just go through the qualifiers and share with them what to text.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And I'll just share a very quick anecdote, which is a lot of people, as you can imagine, reach out to me and just say, "Hey, I saw you're connected with this person. Could you introduce me?" And often it's like someone who I've spoken to maybe once, maybe twice. They've never done anything for me. It's been like a total, what can they get from me type relationship. And obviously in that situation, I'm very unlikely to go and put my reputation on the line for that person. But the ones who reach out to me and we've had like a good conversation, we've built up a bit of a rapport. Maybe we've done something interesting together. Maybe it's just someone that we met in a completely non-sales type environment at a social event or through a friend. I'm always going to do it. And I think that there's just a way of like connecting with people where you deliberately go, I'm not here to get something from you. Like if I come away from this conversation or this interaction, I haven't given something of value to you, I know that I'll never really be able to ask you for anything. And it's not that we should do it so that we can ask it, but if we don't go into that mentality that I'm going to try and find something to give value to the human being, we can almost consider it dead. Because why on earth would they randomly, after like a year, when you ping them and you need something, do something for you if you haven't been the kind of person who's gone, I want to kind of like water the plant of this human being.
Spot
And
on.
I just wonder your view on that.
So I share the view, but I think it's more of like a Venn diagram because again, people don't know how to do this. I don't want to say correctly because I don't think I know everything. I don't think my ways are correct. Remember, I said principles scale, tactics don't. people are not gonna be able to do what I do. What I help people do is understand the principles, and then we come up with a way that works for them, their language, their approach, because they're uniquely them. That's why they get paid. They don't get paid to be like everything else, and if they are trying to be like everything else, that's where AI SDR, that's why AI, AE, like all these, that's who AI is gonna take over. So
Mm,
I'll leave that as the backdrop.
yeah.
But here's my 2 cents. Yes, your reputation precedes you. Every human being has value. These are the philosophies and principles I'm laying out. If you always treat everyone well, regardless whether you think they can help you or not, just be a good human being. If you're a good human being, people will see that, whether or not you've invested in them or brought them specific value. And so what happens is when somebody asks you for a referral, I've said this before and I've wrote a post on this. I swear to God, you're getting all the best secrets out of me today, right? All my good stuff.
You're
I
welcome,
always say,
listeners.
I say that again.
You're welcome, listeners.
I know, right? Because people pay good money for this stuff. But here's the thing. Um, I tell people that when you ask someone else for a referral, you are giving them a gift. What do you mean? I'm asking them for a referral. Shouldn't they be giving me a gift by giving me the referral? No, because what you are is you are giving them the gift of context. What do I mean by that? Somebody just asked me for a referral to someone that I hadn't talked to in forever on LinkedIn. So here's what my message to this person recently sounded like. And I do this with everyone because I'm not going to go ask them for an intro to the other person. I want to get to know what's going on with them. So I tell them the truth. I say, "Hey, someone just literally asked me how well I knew you because they wanted an introduction." I told them I haven't spoken to you in years, but they gave me a good reason to reach out and reconnect. How's everything going? And now I'm setting up some time with multiple people to reconnect. The gift they gave me was the joy of reconnecting. Now, if I reconnect with this individual and I say, "Hey, do you have this problem?" This is because this person was like, "Hey, if they're connected through you, I've been seeing your posts. Like, absolutely, anybody that you would refer, I would take a meeting with." And this is a high level executive, right? But I said, "Well, let's you and I chat first. Like, I haven't talked to you in years." And so I'm waiting to get like the calendar and all that. And this happens all the time. This is how I do it. And then sometimes they have that problem that this person can solve. But I'm also doing some of the work for them, which is what a good connector does. And also, I am now building that relationship currency. As my friend Ravi, he just wrote a book called Relationship Currency. I'm building some currency with that person because I have now become their gatekeeper and I'm not wasting their time for a problem they don't have. But now I'm still building that relationship up. And so if we remember that we're giving people the gift, this goes back to teaching people, like, as the person asking for the referral, if somebody responded to me, said, "Oh man, I haven't talked to that person in forever," or "I don't really know that person." Even if I don't know the person on LinkedIn, I'm first connected, you just gave me context. So I do that for others. I'll say, "Well, I just gave you the gift of context. Why don't you write this to them? Hey, Rich, I know we don't know each other, but somebody recently asked me how well I knew you. And I realized you and I are first connected, but don't actually know each other. Would love to just get to know you, but it gave me, a reason to reach out and actually connect."
I
You've
love
now
that.
given them a gift. And possibly if you train your connector, your referrer the right way, they might be able to refer that person because what's going to happen? They're going to get in a conversation. That person's going to be, they're going to be like, "Well, who asked you about me?" "Oh, Stephen asked you about you. This is what he does. Actually, that might be something I need." Cool. And if not, you got someone connected to another like high level individual.
I
So
love that.
again, there's so much, dude. I could go all day on this stuff, but this is
This
why
is brilliant.
what I train.
I quickly have to disconnect this microphone so I can drop it because that was a mic drop moment, my friends. I love it. It's just made me think of all the times people have asked me that question, and I've gone, I'm just connected. I don't actually know them." And
Yeah.
if I'd had that tip, I would have had like 200 conversations
Yeah.
with people that I would love to get to know,
Yeah.
but I was so stupid that I went, "Sorry, I don't know." Back to like day job, da, 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 you know?
Exactly. Not everyone's gonna take you up on the conversation, but at least now, especially like on LinkedIn, there's a history.
Yeah.
You're in their inbox. They may never respond, But if you ever go back, you'll see that, and maybe it might come up again. Hey, somebody else asked me. I've had 5 people in like the last couple weeks ask me about a person that I know at one of the largest like signature type companies on the planet. And I'm reconnecting with an old buddy of mine because of that. And I'm like, I told him, I said, listen, I've got so many people that are trying to come after you right now. Let me just be your gatekeeper. Let me understand what's going on in your world. So people will still will quit asking me. And then I can just send you the people that actually, you might want to talk to. And now I'm
Yeah,
reconnecting with them.
I love it. That's an incredible tip. Incredible. So let's talk about the future. So we're recording a podcast. It's the 30th of October, 2025. This will live on the I almost said interweb. This will live on the internet for years to come. Someone might be watching this in 2028. What are you working on that in 3 years' time people might find that is just an idea today?
Yeah. Couple things. I have the book, but that'll hopefully be released by the middle of next year. Um, I am working on, just being able to interconnect the world. I'm tired of like, we should know each other. We're all humans on this planet. Is there a way to change the heart of humanity to want to know each other, to live in community, right? Some people want to go live in the forest by themselves in a cabin and not be around people. I like, okay, cool.
Be
Um,
surrounded by animals, though,
it's
and
around
they do want
maybe,
it.
I don't know, but, everyone can but, like, my hope is that by then we've changed the heart of sales. That's one. So you've got the book, Change the Heart of Sales. Hopefully that I've spoken at every company on the planet and taught them this methodology and how to be able to be interconnected, that sort of thing. There's the technology side of it as well, right? Like I'm partnering with a couple technology firms specifically in this area of warm referrals to help people operationalize, scale, do things the right way. Um, but more than anything, I hope that my life serves as a testament that, man, if you just give a flip about people, great things naturally happen and you don't need billions of dollars. Like, every little bit of margin you're trying to squeak out like that, just we can just live a good life and stop competing with each other and just collaborate together and have like this one life. So I hope we're moving more toward that. It sounds ethereal, and I get all that, but I do think there's probably a balance in that direction we can move toward.
I'm looking forward to it, brother. Looking forward to it. Do we have a title we could share on the book as a little sneak
Yeah,
preview?
so we have changed it. Originally, it was called The Chameleon Effect, and that's a old title. It is now called The Referral Effect. And one of the chapters will be The Chameleon Effect, in which I explain how I got these skills, how just by sheer, I wouldn't call it luck, strategy, tactics, all these things, but just how I grew up, all of that's in there. And really just teaching people how they too can utilize their story, their skills to be able to get into any room that they want on the planet.
Boom. No doubt it will be a New York Times bestseller.
That's the hope.
Good man. Amazing. Stephen, you're an absolute gentleman. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Amazing. Everyone else, we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed this conversation, we've got a newsletter called Growth Magnet on LinkedIn, where we take the best insights from all of these episodes and turn them into bite-sized format for you to enjoy.